In Amazon's The Rings of Power, a character called Galadriel is depicted. But, as we've had time to discover, this is far from Tolkien's Galadriel of the Second Age. Tolkien's Galadriel in the Second Age is married to Celeborn and has a daughter, Celebrian. Galadriel and her husband were rulers of elven kingdoms of Middle-earth. She is a princess of the Noldor. She has powers of insight and intellect, and ever-developing powers of more mystical nature, as opposed to brute strength. Tolkien's Galadriel was considered trustworthy and wise enough to become the keeper of Nenya, one of the Rings of Power. She suggested that the ring should be hidden so that Sauron would never get his hands on them. Would a ring so powerful be entrusted to a woman who has shown nothing but brash, angry, vengeful nature up to this point? A commander so focused on her goal that she is perfectly fine with leaving her fellow comrades behind. Someone who listens to no one, is reckless, careless in her actions, and is driven purely by her desire for revenge. Would those be the qualities of someone to whom you would entrust a very powerful magical weapon? Perhaps, you will argue, this is her character arc in the show, that she will eventually grow to be wiser and more like Galadriel of the Third Age. So let's stop here for a moment. Galadriel at this point in the story, in the Rings of Power, is already thousands of years old. At this time, and with everything that happened to her in the First Age, she has failed to learn diplomacy, respect, failed to listen to anyone but herself, and she has continually been making quick, careless decisions. The personality traits that Rings of Power has created for Galadriel here makes her a pretty unlikely, or at least a very odd choice for receiving a Ring of Power. For a powerful magical ring, I would imagine that you would want a bearer who is thoughtful, wise, and certainly not reckless or driven by vengeance. For someone who is on a quest for vengeance, surely an all-powerful ring would be seen as a weapon to use against the enemy, even if there will be thousands of years between episode 1 of the Rings of Power and the time when they actually forge the rings, which there will not be, because Amazon is condensing the timeline. And even if there is, it will be a time jump which does nothing for character development. And we know that Galadriel is still reckless after thousands of years, as she has been depicted in the Rings of Power. In episode 2, she says she's been on the hunt for Sauron since before the first sunrise bloodied the sky, and after all this time her sharp edges are still just as sharp as ever. Therefore, I'm not sure how believable Galadriel's transformation from this into this can be. Tolkien's Galadriel never met Tarmiriel, she never went to Númenor, she never commanded Gil-galad's armies, or any armies for that matter. She was never Xena the warrior princess. And yes, people will bring up examples of her athletic disposition, or her nickname Man-Maiden, the revolt of the Noldor and defense of Aqualonde. So, let me ask, does being of athletic disposition necessarily make you a warrior? Man-Maiden, a nickname in reference to your height and strong physique, does that make you a warrior? Does the phrase, she fought fiercely, necessarily reveal that she even picked up a sword? As far as is known to me, Tolkien is never clear about the manner of her fighting. So yes, at some point, she may have wielded a sword, but in Rings of Power, she is not just participating as a skilled swordswoman, which could maybe make sense, but no, she is the warrior in the Rings of Power, the commander, the one that all others follow in battle. Yet a traditional way of fighting makes little sense for a being such as Galadriel. She would have little need for a sword if she has magical powers, valuable wisdom, insight, all that even without the magic from the ring. Galadriel is a fantastic literary example of what is traditionally considered a more feminine type of power. What I mean by this is the opposite of fists and swords, opposite of face-to-face combat, of brute force. Ring or not, Galadriel's greatest powers are her wisdom, magic, albeit a bit abstract in depiction, and her strategic, insightful mind. Things that make her a valuable ally and that surpass the physical. She is a ruler, a leader, a wise being who, even up to the Second Age, has been through a lot and has been able to gain much wisdom and experience from it. Would this immortal elf who has been through so much in the First Age and who has lived thousands of years really be at the level of a teenager? She may have been prideful, yes, but not a stubborn warrior in the most literal sense. This is what makes her such an awe-inspiring character. You can cut an enemy down with a sword, cool, but how incredible is it if you can cut them down with just a stare? In an attempt to elevate her by giving her a sword, the powers of one of the strongest characters in Middle-earth is diminished. So far in the show, the Rings of Power has brought Galadriel down to the level of a human, both in visual depiction and in the way she thinks about the world, despite the fact that she is already thousands of years old and has learned many a lesson in her many a year. Galadriel has magic that can heal, create, protect, and preserve. Yes, many of her powers do come from the ring, which she is yet to receive at the time when the Rings of Power takes place. But even without the ring, she is neither a damsel in distress nor a seasoned warrior who should be on the brink of an identity crisis without her big sword. In the show, they make her take on her brother's task, his sword, his armor. The show essentially gives her his role, his legacy to continue. And I'm not saying that she should not be angry about his death or passionate about defeating the enemy who has caused her so much sorrow. But why must Galadriel be masculinized and turned into a warrior in the most literal sense, when she has other powers in the book, the depiction of which would not be such a stretch as making a warrior out of her? Powers that could be explored and would be equally, if not more, impressive. In the show, her powers seems to stem from physical strength, from being a fighter, a better fighter than all the men, from being a know-it-all and being the only one who will be right in the end. Again, even if the portrayal in the Rings of Power is supposed to serve her character arc, is this the only way to make a character younger, less wise, and less experienced? To make her careless, arrogant, angry, vengeful, and bloodthirsty, instead of a wise and admired being to whom you would come seek counsel, like Celebrimbor originally does in regards to the rings? Tolkien's Galadriel needs no sword. By giving her one, she is not empowered, but rather deprived of her powers that far surpass those of a mere weapon. And likewise, the audience is deprived of a great feminine role model. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video to be insightful. Let me know your thoughts on Galadriel's portrayal in the comments below, and if you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps me out. I'll see you soon.